Hi there, and welcome to Considering Comic Books. This week we're back with my pal Aaron Flanagan in Belfast's premier comic book store, Comic Book Guys. So feel free to drop in if you're in the area. Today we're going to be talking to Aaron. He's not with us right now because he's dealing with some customers at the counter, but we've also run into this cool young guy who we were talking to. We're just talking shop, talking comics with at the counter earlier. His name's Conall Campbell. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
So you're gonna be stepping in because you're an enthusiastic young comics reader, and you're gonna be giving your opinion on this week's episode. We decided to talk about what we're reading at the minute, what we're currently into, and what's ticking all the boxes. So without further ado, Conall, what are you reading at the minute? What's your thing?
Currently reading Bendis Superman, Doomsday Clock, Scott Snyder's Justice League, Detective, Batman, Nick Spencer's Amazing Spider-Man, and Jason Aaron's Avengers.
So you're reading a pretty diverse run. It's that's quite a lot of stuff. What would you say? There's a lot of people right now have mixed opinions about Bendis's Superman. What's your opinion on it? Are you an old school Superman fan? Or are you coming in new?
Well, I started reading Superman about a year ago, but I've read from the start of the New 52 onwards. I've read a couple stories here and there from the 80s and 90s. To be honest, I'm not too sure where I stand on it. To be honest, like he's got the character nailed, but I think his script isn't too good. But I think I'm going to give him a chance because he's pulled off some pretty good stories in the past. But Man of Steel, it was probably too long for him.
Okay.
If they shortened it down about 2 issues, it would have been great.
Well, funny, we were talking at the counter earlier, and one of the things we brought up is that Bendis seems to work better on sort of solo character arcs with sort of street level characters. Like some of my favourite stuff that he's done has been Daredevil, Miles Morales. I wasn't a huge fan of his Ultimate Spider-Man with Peter Parker, but I really like this Miles stuff, and I like this Daredevil. Again, his team books like Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy were sort of hit and miss for me. He had some really good creative teams like Lionel Francis Yu and Sarah Pichelli on his books, but again, they couldn't really save the books from me from what I felt was kind of lackluster writing. It's like his best work is in his character work and not in his plotting.
Well, thankfully he's just writing Superman at the moment and not a team. But,
At least it's a solo character, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he said that Action Comics is going to be more Daily Planet and character driven, so I think that's probably going to be the book for you, but Superman's going to be dealing with the larger scale of things. First issue I thought was interesting. It's a nice way to start the run. I don't know where exactly he'll go with it, but I'm intrigued. I haven't read Action Comics 1001 yet, but...
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, another thing, you were saying that you're a big Spider-Man fan. You just finished Go Down Swinging.
Yeah.
With, that was Dan Slott's final couple of issues on the Amazing Spider-Man run with the Red Goblin arc. What's your thoughts?
Really cool concept. Don't know why they didn't do this before, but in the end, was a emotional ending to it, but I think it wasn't as strong as it should have been.
Yeah.
But I think it was a good send-off because he did have a last good story, but I think he could have had a last great story.
Are you enthusiastic about Nick Spencer's run?
I've only read the first issue in the Free Comic Book Day. Free Comic Book Day didn't really sell me, but after the reveal at the end of the first issue, I am intrigued because it's the first time it's really happened since JMS's Spider-Man. So
Spencer's another controversial writer because of his take on Captain America, which really divided the fan base.
Yeah.
He's the Marvel equivalent of Ryan Johnson in a way, in that he took a beloved character and made so many fans angry about him. Do you have any fears that he's going to do something similar like that with Peter Parker?
Well, I think like Bendis, people need to be ready to see something different. I think people are too afraid to sit in their comfort zone. because I found with Captain America, I've never really been intrigued, but when the whole Secret Empire was going down, I didn't read it, but I was keeping tabs on it, and
It sparked your interest.
It did, because it was something we'd never seen before. It was a new story that hadn't been written, but after Secret Empire, it's just near enough went to the same old Captain America stories once again.
Do you think sometimes the comics gate crowd tends to lean too conservative in terms of shaking things up with their characters? I know that a lot of new characters have been created to fill the roles of old characters, like Riri Williams or Miss Marvel or whatever. Mm-hmm. But do you think that there's a place for these characters? They need to be. They just need the right storytelling. They need the strong stories behind them.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'd say is obviously they were introduced to fill those characters because Marvel wanted to be more diverse. But I'd say that the main problem people don't actually like them is because the stories that involve them and introduce them weren't written well, and the old characters were thrown out in favour of the new ones. So
I think you hit the nail on the head, actually, and I think a lot of it is to do with the storytelling. Mm-hmm. For instance, one of the things I want to talk about was Peter Parker Spider-Man, because we were talking about Amazing Spider-Man, and it's Chip Zdarsky, and he was heavily criticised whenever he came onto the book for writing, how would you say, sort of a Peter Parker that the fans didn't want. He was a bit too fey and comedic, whereas he course corrected, and now the fans seem to have come on board. They're heavily supportive of his run now. And another thing that he's done is he's taken the character of Riri Williams, who is largely lambasted and sort of hated by a large amount of the fan base, and made her really personable, really likable, which goes to show that those characters, any character under the right direction, yeah, thank you. Any character under the right direction can be really, really good. Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, have you tried Venom at all with Donny Cates?
No, I never really read Venom, but I don't know if it would spark my interest, but I heard Mark Bagley's on the book, so...
Oh, he was on the book. It's now Ryan Stegman has taken over.
Well, he's another good artist, so yeah. I might pick it up, but I've stayed away from Marvel for a while because I feel that their art hasn't been that as strong as it should be, and I feel that their stories kind of anticlimactic at the end of the day. Nothing necessarily really happens. I think the past few Marvel events, given like Civil War 2, the biggest waste of money ever.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's almost like they want to make radical changes without anything actually changing.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of, as you say, there's been complaints about the art. I think they've got some great art, but they've also got some very basic stuff in there. Like I'm looking at certain books where it's almost like they dialed it in. A lot of they're largely books I wouldn't read anyway, because they're sort of what I would regard as sort of fringe tier characters like Squirrel Girl or what have you, that are designed not really for me as a demographic anyway. I probably wouldn't read that stuff anyway. Mm-hmm. So I often wonder, is there a demographic there that is being appealed to with that artwork, or is it the case that comic fans have a traditional sort of idea of what they want in really good comic art, and they're going to be the only people that read the book? It's hard to know, isn't it? It's hard to how are you going to get that new demographic in if you don't try? Yeah,
I mean, I suppose you do have to appeal to the newer generation of fans. I think that's what the main purpose of DC's New 52 was. They wanted to have a darker, edgier universe, and it got me interested in Batman. I mean, Batman's always been that sort of character, and obviously Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, their run was incredible. But I think the main problem tends to be that, again, the writing.
Yeah.
The reason Scott Snyder's Batman was amazing wasn't because it was Batman, it was because the first story took him out of his element and completely shattered what we thought. And every story since, a couple ones here and there weren't exactly on par with each other, but it was a continuous story about how he near enough broke Bruce Wayne and built him back up again.
Yeah.
I think that's what Bendis is trying to do with Superman at the moment. But
well, it's the hero's journey, isn't it? It's the whole Gilgamesh thing. I was talking to a friend of mine, Peter Duncan, about it the other day, and all heroic journeys are all sort of based on the Gilgamesh theme, and that is that, you know, it's about, you know, the fall and rise through adversity of the hero, and I think especially in modernity, there's part of the issues with the modern characters is that they haven't faced the challenges of, say, like a Batman or a Tony Stark, or, you know, I mean, all of those characters were baptized in fire. Like Peter Parker's, you know, story is one that's, you know, it's born out of tragedy. You know, he made a terrible decision which would lead to him becoming a better person and a superhero, and it's the same with Stark. He was a weapons manufacturer who, you know, went on to see the error of his ways through being stuck in a cave as a hostage, and seeing what, you know, the ultimate design of his weapons, and so, you know, or Batman even, you know, his parents were shot in front of him. All these characters are sort of born out of tragedy, so a lot of the modern characters don't have that as a hook. And maybe that's endemic of the times we live in. We definitely live in softer times, but I do feel that characters with a strong emotional hook, that, you know, something that readers can become invested in, is better when you've got them coming from a place of something terrible happened to them or whatever. They have to have like a motivation for going out and doing what they do, you know.
Well, I actually also think Marvel's main problem is because the films are so successful. They think every person that has seen Infinity War will want to come in and read a Thanos story. That's just not the case. Like, the general public will see a Marvel film and think, yeah, that's a cool movie, but they won't want to. There'll be a small amount that will want to come in and check it out, but not everyone's going to be interested. And I think the main problem is that Marvel have been doing events that coincide with the films. So you had Civil War, you had Civil War 2, you had Infinity War, you've Marvel. DC, I'd say now have it nailed. Like, obviously there's still a few rights here and there, but they're definitely stronger in terms of their storytelling. But Marvel, I think the main problem is there's no motivations in their characters as much as they should be. So like the reason. Most people would agree with me when I say this, but the reason I love Marvel so much is because different take on the character. Maybe people aren't used to it, but I think people need to give things a chance. But if it's well,
you're talking about the Zack Snyder in Man of Steel.
Yeah,
it's funny actually. I hated Man of Steel, but it's for entirely different. It's my big issue with Man of Steel was. Had American Midwestern values, and Jonathan Kent was very much a part of that, whereas in the new film he was a much more cynical character, and I sort of have an archetype in my head of what Superman should be, and he is he is all American apple pie. He is a Boy Scout. There's no ambiguity about what he does because he grew up in he comes from a Depression era, written by two Jewish immigrants who had this grand dream for what they wanted America to be. So when you look at him, when he started out, he was fighting slumlords and gangsters and stuff like that. That was Superman's origin story, and so that would kind of be my expectation of a film version, and I think Richard Donner got it so right first time round that I'm of that generation that the original Superman movie had a massive impact on me, so that I can see why people like Man of Steel. My good friend Mark Savage loves it, but it's just not my Superman.
Well, my version of Superman is the same as yours, and I'm sure Zack Snyder's was the same, but what his goal with the DC universe was to have the characters lost and broken at the start, so that through a series of events they would then eventually become the characters they were meant to be. So like, obviously him killing Zod was extremely controversial.
Yeah, it was massively controversial.
But then that taught him he shouldn't it taught him the fundamental principle of Superman, which is there's always another way. Obviously there's a lot of destruction caused in Metropolis.
Well, I agree with you. It's funny because I think you're always going to have in fandom, you're going to have people who are attached to their version of the characters. You know, so there's various different versions of. I guess I'm trying to think of a good example. Green Lantern, for instance. If you look at the Justice League animated series that came out, for a lot of people, John Stewart was their Green Lantern, and certainly I'd read Hal Jordan, but I connected more with John Stewart from the the TV show, and so whenever they flipped over to Nathan Fillion as Hal Jordan, I was like, where's John Stewart, and so it's everyone has their idea of what a character should be, and or who the character should be, and what have you. So I guess it's nice to try new things. I think the important thing is that they're well written. But we're gonna bring it back into stuff that we're reading, which is kind of like what we're. Have you tried out Mark Miller's Magic Order?
No.
Not your style?
I mean, I don't have enough money to buy as many comic books as I would like to a month. But
tell me about it. Living on a budget, man.
I know, it's awful, but I consider it. But to be honest, I'm comfortable sticking where I am. The first book I did try that was quite different was The Immortal Men. Wasn't used to
Immortal Man, yeah. No, you were telling me something about this. I haven't tried it out, but I've got a couple of issues sitting in the house.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of more. The more you read it, the deeper the mystery goes. But I'm going to say I love James Tynion IV. He was always an apprentice to Snyder in the New 52, and then
they teamed up for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and then in Rebirth he did his Detective Comics run, which I thought it was great. But I thought I should give it a shot because it's a good writer writing the book, and I thought, you know what, like it's a pretty solid story. I wouldn't say it's the best comic I've ever read, but it's an interesting new concept that I wouldn't have read normally.
What is the concept? Because I haven't checked it out yet.
It's kind of more, so this guy, I can't remember his name, but he's just a normal kid, dreams that he's helping out the superheroes, all like any kid would in that world, and he's told, like, no, you're just a normal kid, and then slowly, like, this series of events, like these sort of demons pop up and all that, and it's kind of like, well, it sounds cool enough, but then what happens is the Immortal Men come to him and they say that they need him to help fight against the Infinite Woman, who is sisters with the Immortal Man, and them two have been in a war for a long time. Okay. So I won't give too much away, but it's a pretty good story. Okay, it sounds it's got that sort of mythic angle to it. Sort of there's like this legacy effect going on. Yeah. All right, that sounds interesting. One of the things, I'm reading a couple of different things from the new line from DC. One of them is the Terrifics, which you said you kind of drifted away from. Yeah, I mean, New Age of DC, the only one I've stuck with is the Immortal Men, but I only tried it and the Terrifics. Terrifics was good. Kind of also disappointed that Ivan Rice didn't stick around for the art. His stuff's great. It's pretty good. It's great, and I gotta tell you, the Terrifics for me. Whenever Aaron comes down, he can chime in on this. But the Terrifics for me feels like Fantastic Four from like 20 or 30 years ago. Yeah, right? I mean, I think DC's plan now is because Marvel aren't using their characters effectively. Yeah, they might as well take them. So well, that is true. But that said, they kind of did a Hulk book with Damage, but Al Ewing has come on to the Immortal Hulk, and a lot of people have issues with Al Ewing because he's a big fan of block bots on Twitter and stuff like that, but that doesn't really bother me too much. I'm looking at his writing more than his personality, and I gotta tell you, I think the Immortal Hulk is one of the best Hulk books I've read since maybe the I'm going to say Peter David. I'm going to say controversially Peter David because I not like Greg Pak and Jeff Loeb stuff. I liked Pak's Planet Hulk stuff, and I even liked the Bruce Jones stuff. But it didn't feel like a lot of it didn't feel like Hulk to me. It did seem like a big, massive series of events, one after the other. But I thought it was cool to have so many good Hulk stories for such a short amount of time. But I've heard good things about the Immortal Hulk. Well, it's great, and I have to say, I can't remember who's doing art. I wish I had a copy in front of me. Issue 4 had
an amazing throwback cover to the new Fantastic Four, which was a Art Adams 4-part miniseries where Hulk, Ghost Rider, Wolverine and Spider-Man took over as the Fantastic Four. It wasn't one of those just temporary switch-outs where She-Hulk took over from the Thing, but it's because, as we know, the Fantastic Four are coming back, so they're hyping it. So I picked up that issue, and it was just absolutely great. I have to say, check out Immortal Hulk if you haven't got it on your pull list. I'll actually, whenever I'm finished with mine, I'll chuck them down for you. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, sweet as. Gotta get the next generation of comics readers into comics, man. That is the key here. Yeah. So another thing I'm reading at the minute from DC's new stuff is Silencer, Dan Abnett.
Haven't been reading it. I haven't actually heard much about it, actually. But
John Romita Jr. on art choice.
Is he still on it?
I think he dropped off for the last 2 issues, 6 or 5 and 6. It's somebody else, but he started the run anyway, and it was a strong run.
Fair enough. I actually haven't read too much into it. I'll have to check it out at some point, but I suppose like the point of the new age of DC was if Marvel aren't doing their characters right, then we'll take them.
Yeah.
I suppose I'll have to give it a shot then.
Dude, it's worth a look. Like I said, I'll probably, if you want, I'll chuck you down my issues.
Sounds good.
Man, let me see. What else are you reading at the minute? What's your standouts?
I suppose it's not really a standout, but it's the more I read it, the more I get interested by it. Jason Aaron's Avengers.
Really? Okay, it's Ed McGuinness on art, and he's split art duties with somebody else, hasn't he?
Yeah, I can't remember the name, but it's pretty good art. Actually, I was surprised given that Marvel's art hasn't been particularly strong in the past while, but it's...
Yeah.
But yeah...
no, I've read it. I've read the first couple of issues, and yeah, I mean, how can I say this? I think I like Aaron's character work more, is plotting on his character work more when he's working in smaller settings, like with Southern Bastards and
Thor.
Yeah, well, I read the first part of his Thor run. I didn't read the Jane Foster Thor. I got to about issue 4, and feminism crept in, and I was like, I'm out of here. And but I hear a lot of people have told me that it was great and they really enjoyed it.
Well, I haven't read Thor in a long time, but I just heard that his Thor run was just outstanding.
Yeah, I've heard that the first half definitely was. Especially
I heard also Unworthy Thor with Olivier Coipel. I can't remember if that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah,
it's like a 5-issue miniseries. Apparently, that was supposed to be pretty good too.
Well, his stuff is outstanding, and I read that miniseries. It was great. It was so good. Yeah. So he's actually, we'd mentioned it earlier, the Magic Order with Mark Millar. He's currently on our tours. Aaron's actually waving to us from the counter here. He hasn't got a chance to come down and talk because the place is just swamped with customers. But Olivier Coipel, absolutely gorgeous, and he started off doing something Legion Lost with Dan Abnett, another stupendous title that if anyone's listening in, dude, where have you been?
Running an uber successful shop, Mark.
Me and this young man have been down here talking comics.
Talking shit about me?
Yeah, well, I did. I was trying to keep it quiet so you wouldn't hear. I was like, I'll come a surprise to him whenever he comes on the podcast. Come on over. This dude's standing over here. He thinks I'm gonna fill him up or something. Get in close so we can talk.
That's why I stand so close to you, Mark. It hasn't happened yet.
Well, mate, I don't want comic book guys to have hashtag me too, me tagged into it. I can't deal with that kind of pressure. Yeah.
Unreal.
So here, we've been talking about what we're reading. I've been going through stuff. Well, go on. What are you reading? What's your reads? What's your recommends at the minute?
Best thing I've read in the last 2 weeks was a book called Farmhand.
Farmhand? You told me about this.
So Farmhand, Rob Gilroy, he's the guy who did Chew. He's the writer, artist extraordinary. He does everything. Mm-hmm. Farmhand is unreal. If you haven't picked it up yet, grab it. It's the idea is this guy goes back to his home family farmstead. Zeke, he wants to do right by his family. So him and his family go back to the farm. His dad runs the farm, but it's not like your average farm.
Right.
So what they grow, unlike normal,
marijuana.
They don't like they grow organs.
Oh, okay.
So they grow organs, and Zeke comes back to sort of help out. But now it's only the first issue so far. There's something dodgy about the dad. I don't know what it is yet. But the great thing about Rob's artwork is throughout it, although it's cartoony, it lends itself to building great horror and suspense to it.
Sure.
So I've been reading that, which is a great Image title. It's only started. Obviously Spider-Man, and I know I overheard just talking about some of the new titles like Spider-Man, Superman, and all those.
What about? Have you been reading? You read Infidel? Didn't you?
I read the first issue.
Right. I don't want to give too much away, but it's one of my favourite horror titles in probably the last couple of years for sure.
I remember recommending that book to so many people, and I'm delighted it did. It's turned out to be an absolute whirlwind success.
Well, it got picked up for a movie after 2 issues. Yeah, didn't it?
It was the first. To be fair, and it was only a 5-part series.
Yeah, it's a 5-part series.
For a short run like that to get
optioned,
unreal.
Motherfucker.
I know.
The 2 issues out and you're already swimming in it.
You're making money.
You're swimming in it. Yeah,
no, to be fair,
we're talking about not being able to afford our comics on a monthly basis. Damn you!
To be fair, for the comic industry, it's just what's needed at the minute. You know, the type of stuff that they bring up in it is very current. It's very politically charged in parts, but I think it's a cracking read, and I'm looking forward to reading through the rest of it. Actually,
have either of you two gentlemen been trying out Power Rangers Shattered Grid? Now, to preface this, I am not a Power Ranger. I'd watched some of the stuff, some of the TV show, but I'd never sort of thought I'd give Power Rangers a go. It's not really my bag, but they launched this event, and I thought, it looks kind of interesting. I got to tell you guys, the Shattered Grid stuff is some of the best team book I'm reading at the minute. It's absolutely great. It just so happens to be set in the Power Rangers universe. Yeah. But it is Kyle Higgins of Hadrian's Wall and Cloak. Was it? Yeah.
The opening issue was unreal.
You were about to go fucking amazing, right?
Fucking amazing,
you can curse on this podcast. It's okay. Right? It's okay, because I don't think anyone with kids is listening to this. I think it's all guys in our age bracket.
If you are peeping out anyway, but no, the first issue was unbelievable. The idea behind it, now, I've only read the one so far, only because, similarly to you, I loved the TV show, fucking Putties Galore. Unreal, best TV show there was when I was a kid. The comics never interested me at all. Kira read them, she read through the first 6 or 7, enjoyed them, but just wasn't my thing. But Shattered Grid broke open this idea where, I think, based on the first issue, I don't know if it carries on that way, that it's sort of different dimensions or different teams from different dimensions.
It's like Highlander, except, it's obviously, it's set in Power Rangers, so it's Tommy, the green/white ranger, and he's this evil version of him is hopping dimensions and stealing the powers of all the other Power Rangers and kind of like building himself this army of Power Rangers and Zords and sort of stuff. Man, I gotta tell you, it is great. And Kimberly, the Pink Ranger, there's this sort of future version of her, and she's total badass. It's ticking a lot of my boxes. Now, I know all this sort of stuff was done in cheesy movies, like what do you call that? Jet Li, The One. It was a movie from the 90s or something, early 2000s. I mean, this has all been done before, but it's being done really well. And that is why, I guess, I'm enjoying it so much. So I wanted to bring that up because Boom Studios are doing some great licensed stuff at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that title alone, just as a side for, not that anybody's interested, it's probably our 2nd or 3rd best-selling indie title this year.
Get out of it.
Mm-hmm. And that's including all Image titles. It is the most added, in the last 3 months, the most added title to pull this into here.
Huh.
And it continues to grow.
Tell me this, does Batman continue to sell at a massive rate?
It does. Batman will always sell. The problem is, issue 50 was an issue that really divided opinion, and for us,
it's the Ryan Johnson of Batman titles.
It really has divided. And I read the issue. It was okay. It was a bit of a letdown in places. Artwork was phenomenal. It was just the story itself was a little bit, I don't know, lackluster. It felt like there was no. You were waiting for something big and nothing really happened.
What did you think, Conall?
I think it was too predictable.
Yeah.
Main problem is that Batman will again be always one of those characters that has to suffer for no reason. They're not letting him progress. I'd say Superman. Been married to Lois Lane for years, and then all of a sudden, New 52, but nearly the end, Superman, Lois and Clark, they gave us John Kent, who is one of the best characters in comics.
Great new character,
and ever since that, Superman has been one of the most interesting characters to read about. Now, the family dynamic is a key thing.
Yeah, and that's
Batman
after, yeah.
has had that, but I think if you're going to marry Batman, and we all know that he's going to get left at the altar, like, then don't write it. But then he said that he's got a 100-issue story planned, and we're only halfway through. So
it could potentially all come together in the end.
I just think it's a bit frustrating for a lot of customers because there was a lot of tie-ins called Prelude to the Wedding. You know, there's 8 of those or 6 of those, and people were coming in expecting and paying for this event to happen, and it really left them feeling a bit cheesed off.
See, I hate publicity stunts, and the fact that they leaked it to the New York Times or something,
right, the day before.
didn't they? They sort of the day before, so that spoiler was out there. Oh man, I mean, come on, you know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know we live in a time where you shouldn't be annoyed at spoilers, because spoilers are just going to get out there now. We live in a time where shit's leaking long before you're ever going to see it in the movies or whatever. It just gets out there.
It is social media will do
it's
that.
clickbait currency, you know. So you shouldn't get annoyed, but still, like, DC is a big company, and you would think they would, you know,
be able to hide it a bit
more. Speaking of that Batman, we were talking about Catwoman, the new Catwoman series. I'm really on board with this. I think it's Joelle Jones.
Yep, Joelle Jones. Possibly, as I said earlier, one of my favourite people in comics. She is phenomenal.
Really?
Her stuff, she did a run about 4 years ago that I remember being called Lady Killer. Essentially a female Dexter. I don't know if you just watched the TV show Dexter.
I watched the season of it.
Yeah, very, very like that. And her art, it's so soft and so, I don't know, it's just lovely. Looking at it, it's just lovely.
It's just like her. It's so soft
and
so lovely. I looked her up on Google. She's fit as a butcher's dog, boys. But I'm just saying, no, she is
class.
It's a representation. Yeah, you know what I mean. No, I know exactly what you mean. Her art is absolutely lovely stuff, and her writing is tight as. She's a really brilliant creator. Yeah. So I gotta say, I'm on board with it. I put it down on pull. Cool. So. Yeah, another title I've been reading, and doesn't get much love, but it's coming to its finale now, and I don't think you guys read it, but I got into it in the past couple of years because a friend of mine kept pushing me, and that was Transformers. And it is. Did you hear that? Did you hear that boundless enthusiasm there? I got a groan. But I gotta tell you, some of the James Roberts and John Barber are doing some of the best sci-fi writing. And I went back and read some of the original relaunch stuff with Simon Furman. It is just a really good. You know, it's like Ultimates for Transformers, really, and they I think they've done amazing things over at IDW with the title. So the Unicron stuff at the minute is high stakes. It's great, and I hope IDW hold on to the franchise after this, because as a Transformers reader, and I've only really started reading it again and getting into immersing myself in that universe again, it's just some really tightly plotted stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm being a bit unfair groaning, because I have read, in terms of the modern stuff, Sins of the Wreckers and Last Stand of the Wreckers, and they were actually phenomenal. I tried to dip my toe into Lost Light, but I hadn't read any more. I hadn't read any of More Than Meets the Eye, so it's just sort of felt I just didn't get a good jumping on point, and I think that's what puts a lot of people off getting into Transformers. And being honest, Mark, you know, people come into me and ask me for recommendations of different titles all the time, and I'll tell them where I would imagine a good starting point is for a lot of comics, but Transformers, I struggle with to tell people where to jump in.
Dude,
it's a behemoth.
There's no good jumping on point with Transformers. I've noticed that. What the thing about Transformers is, it's another little niche fandom. I think, like, they've got Autocom and stuff like that, and I think that's something I'm starting to understand. Oh, nearly dropped my phone. Shit, almost dropped my phone there. So I had to stop recording. But what I was saying was Transformers. I think it's the legacy effect, and I'm starting to understand this about a lot of fandoms, particularly Star Wars, and that is, there's a legacy effect, i.e., you know, somebody from, you know, the grandfather from the 1970s who got his son or daughter into Star Wars, who got their kids into Star Wars, and I think that's the same with Transformers, because it's, I mean, unless you're really that way inclined, I think sometimes it's a bit impenetrable. I mean, they're maybe catching the odd couple of kids through the TV show Transformers Prime or whatever, but I think there's an unbelievable legacy effect where people who are into this stuff get more people into this stuff, And that's why I hate to see fandoms sort of being attacked or denigrated, because there's actually, there is generations in those fandoms. So if you hit one generation and say, oh, you guys are a toxic fandom, and they're like, whoa, hold on, then you're hitting all those generations. Which is why I think especially in modern times where it's so easy on social media to take pot shots at entire demographics of people. You have to bear in mind that it's intergenerational. There's people that are with opinions from maybe like the 1960s or the 1970s. Then you've got like people from the 1980s and the 1990s, our generation, and now you've got the 2000s, the 2010s onwards, new generations of people, and they're all lumped into this big sort of fan base, and they've all got into it through different ways. But I think a lot of ways I've found people getting into it is family members getting their kids into, or the kids or the cousins or whatever, into comic books, into nerd culture.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with it. I think it's fandoms get hit harder than anything because, as you said, it has had that legacy effect, and it's people do find it impenetrable sometimes. I mean, that's part of the problem I find with Transformers, but it shouldn't mean that you just discard it automatically, because and that does happen. But that Unicron stuff at the minute though has been a wonder for us. It's been amazing.
It's been doing well.
Yeah, I think it's because when you hear that something's coming to an end, or there's an end game in sight, people start to get excited, thinking, oh, even though they maybe haven't read anything else, they're thinking, hey, there's coming to an end, let's jump on that.
Conall's looking at us like, when are you born bastards going to start talking about DC again? So I can get back in on the conversation.
I was actually trying to make a joke about the movies, but
the movies?
I didn't want to offend you.
The Michael Bay movies? No, listen, you're not going to offend... You're not going to offend me. I think the Bay movies are shit. But
even the first one?
I think the first one's a passable movie, but I think after that they became progressively more and more derogatory. But it's one of those things. I enjoy certain elements of them. I love to see the Marines bursting through a window and shooting shit up, and I really enjoyed that sort of side of them. But at the same time, it didn't feel like Transformers to me, because Transformers to me is kind of like that G1 chunky design, and for lack of a better word, these sort of friendly robots that are in a tight spot. Optimus Prime should seem ridiculously moral and good. He's like the Abe Lincoln of robots, but at the same time, you sort of got that in the movies, but then there was this hyper violence attached to it that I wasn't down with. I was like, geez, he's pulling out that robot's spine. I mean, so there's elements of it I didn't like. But anyway, we're going to come back to more stuff that we're reading. I'm looking because I've written it all on my hand, because I'm high tech like that.
He actually has 50 titles on his hand. You should pick that up as a picture with the podcast, Mark.
Has anyone read The Brave and the Bold?
No.
Liam Sharp?
It looks beautiful. Good. It looks beautiful.
I'll give this man the issues. I'll set him up, because it is good. It's a real slow burner. But I have to say, it's the research and the detail that went into the artwork that really makes it for me.
It's the artwork that makes that series for most people. Based on the customers that I talked to in here, a lot of them, not downplaying the story at all, but a lot of them have kept it on because the art is stunning. It is visually one of the nicest looking books I've seen in a long time.
It's gorgeous. The graphic novel is going to be a blinder.
Speaking of nice looking books, what do you think about Doomsday Clock?
Oh, now he's bringing us in on a controversial one. If you're an Alan Moore purist, you probably wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. But since I'm not, I've been reading it as well.
I think it's been a slow burner.
It's a slow burner, but I really love Gary Frank's art.
His art's unreal.
Brilliant. I think the main problem is that they said it's going to be the first self-contained event with no tie-ins. They've been building it up for 2 years in Rebirth, and then in the last issue they mentioned the future Sanctuary event, which is coming in September, and all that, and you're like, you know what, even the Judge of Oils and all that, you're just kind of like, you know what, he said, John said himself in an interview, to jump into Doomsday Clock, all you need to know is you've read Watchmen, and you know who Batman and Superman are.
It's not quite the case.
I don't think it is the case. I think he's downplayed that, because I can't even work out what version of the DC universe this is supposed to be set in.
It's supposed to be... So as soon as Doomsday Clock finishes, the DC, it's supposed to be set in the future of the current DC universe. Right. So as soon as Doomsday Clock finishes, that will be the current thing that has happened in DC, and then everything else will catch up to it. So
I don't know. It struck me as a very 1970s version of the DC universe.
I think they're trying to make it as approachable as they can. Like you look, they've got Superman in his trunks, they've got Batman wearing his old costume and all that. Like even the Riddler was wearing his pajamas and all that.
He was wearing his Jim Curry outfit from Batman Forever.
He was. So like, obviously they're doing that, but no, it's definitely in the current DC universe.
So it's in the current DC universe. That's interesting. I am enjoying it, but it is massively slow burner, and
it's killing it that it's every 2 months.
It's too long.
It started off strong, and I think the problem as well is that John's I like him. I think he's great, but Alan Moore really was. He was writing crime with philosophy as the bones of the story. Do you know what I mean? So
Johns just seems to be writing cool stories with a bit of depth, not too much. Because I found like Johns is like in comparison to like so say Scott Snyder, his Batman stuff was very deep.
Yeah,
like you could sit and analyze that sort of stuff. But Johns is like his Green Lantern stuff. It was like a big popcorn flick. Like you're just along for the ride.
Best run of Green Lantern ever though.
I know.
Jeff Johns.
Yeah, I loved it.
With controversial Uncle Ethan Van Sciver.
I know. That's very true actually.
He's controversial now.
He is now.
Although I gotta tell you, that Green Lantern Rebirth, whenever they brought Hal back,
it was class.
It was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, hate the man, not the artwork. I'll be honest with you. I think he's a populist and he loves to talk shit on Twitter and on YouTube or whatever. But it won't affect my appreciation of his artwork.
Yeah, as you say, that Rebirth run back in the day was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I think it was the Green Lantern, Jeff Johns stuff actually. I never really fell out of love with comics. I mean, we talked about the last time I was on it with you, Mark. I didn't really fall out of love ever with comics, but that was the run that piqued my interest to a level again, like back when I was a kid of reading a comic, and thank God for it, because it was just, I go back and reread it, and as you say, Conall, you're spot on. It is like a big popcorn. You could imagine watching that on screen, and I think that's why it's so accessible. Because people still ask me a good jumping on point for Green Lantern, and that is one of the ones that I always tell them, always.
And you've got to go,
yeah.
Because there's someone coming into the shop, so you're going to have to go back to the till.
Carry on.
Yeah. Well, here, listen. I'll tell you what. We'll wrap things up. For this week, because really all I wanted to do was get a couple of people together and just talk about what comics we're reading at the minute and what we're interested in. And another thing I want to drop this before I go, another high recommendation, and that is the 2000 AD Mega Collection. If you're not collecting it, some of the best sci-fi stories ever written. Got to get in on it. I've obviously got to say that I'm biased because I've been doing a little bit of work for 2000 AD. I am massively biased, but I did actually grow up reading all those stories, and some of the art and stuff in it is just the art and the writing. It's frankly phenomenal, and would go on to have a massive influence on the rest of American comics, really. So listen, Conall, thanks very much for stepping in, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Sure.
An enthusiastic young comic reader like yourself, sitting with two old dogs like me and Aaron, who've been kicking around, reading comics, 30 odd years? Yeah, probably something like 30 odd years. So what age are you?
18.
Shit, man. It's fucking fresh to it. That's exactly the sort of comic reader you want to get in, these young guys. So it just goes to show you the door is still open. We're still bringing new people into the industry. Isn't that great to hear?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, dude, it's been an absolute pleasure.
It's great being here, yeah.
No problem. Aaron, shout down. Oh, he's going to come down. He's actually... Come on down.
Oh.
We're wrapping it up.
Oh, let me get in for the closing.
Get in for the closing. We're saying this young man's 18. And he's exactly the sort of new blood you want coming into the comic shop,
It is. It's great. I mean, Connell's been with us now for over a couple of months. Well, a couple of months now. Just
I think so.
So you're, early days, but it just shows you, even from listening to him on the podcast, the plethora of knowledge he has
Unreal.
is phenomenal.
He
knows more than us, Mark.
Yeah. No, he doesn't. He's been listening to Comic Story and the cheating bastard.
You test me on JMS's Spider-Man, I'll answer anything.
Oh, I would believe you, mate. I've actually been rereading it. Another great run. But here,
but it's great to see. It just shows you that comics for a while, there was a worry that they were starting to fail. There's no way. That we are in a great position, and it just shows you when 18, 19-year-olds are still loving it the way you are. It's great to see.
Mate, I'm telling you, it's heartening. is what it is. So it's been an absolute pleasure. Aaron, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Talking some shit about comics. Conall, thank you for coming on, and we'll have to do this again, guys, because I've had a great time. It's been great crack.
Thank you,
All
Mark.
the best, guys, and see you folks next time on Considering Comics. Leave some comments in the comment section. We always love to hear from you, all two of you. Bye. Thanks for watching the video, and if you enjoyed it, please comment below. I'd love to hear from you. You can follow me at Consider Comics on Twitter. That's Consider_Comics, and you can check out my own work with my artistic collaborator, very talented Ryan Brown, over at his website, ryanbrownart.com, where the first part of our free online webcomic, Esther the Relique, is available for free. Please enjoy, and if you like it or hate it, and you've got any criticism or feedback, we would love to hear from you.